this story. Remember the cops enter a wrong apartment on the no knock and shoot, and yeah, and the guy woke up with reaches his firearm. And yeah, a no knock. This is it right here. This is called "Cop Shoots Man During No Knock Warrant." Cop shoots a black man during no knock warrant. I'm just gonna let the video roll. It's about 10 minutes.
There's a cop who shoots a black man during a no knock warrant. The man isn't even listed on the warrant.
Yep, that's exactly it.
This happened early Wednesday morning.
Place.
Minneapolis police entered an apartment, and in the seconds that followed, a black man asleep.
He was sleeping, yes.
And shown holding a gun that he legally had a right to have.
Mm-hmm.
He was then
Second
shot and
right.
killed. Here's some of the video.
Let's go. Viewers' discretion is advised, ladies and gentlemen. That's a really fucked up the way to go out.
To watch.
You're just sleeping. The cops in your apartment, like, what's going on? You waking up, reaching your arm.
He shot Amir Locke during a no-knock warrant. The video was released at multiple speeds. One version in real time.
This is why we need to do away with fucking no-knock warrants. Need to go. There's been too many of them go around.
Now, according to
that's what happened in Houston over a year ago with the Tuttles, and there's been quite a few no-knock warrants as well too.
Family attorneys and the city identified the man who was shot Wednesday as this young brother. Let's put up his picture, Amir Locke. Not only is he dead, but those that would have come because of his lineage are dead. His future children are dead. His children's children are dead. His children's children's children are dead.
Yep.
When you kill a human being, you kill a significant bloodline that will now never exist.
Part of the family tree.
They are all dead now.
Yep.
Because of this cop. Hennepin County Attorney Mike Freeman announced Friday
the cop that
they have now requested the Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison to join in the review of this shooting. According to Freeman in a statement, he said, and I quote, "We will be working with the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension to ensure a thorough and complete evaluation.
And keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, this is the same state
we will decide together based on the law and evidence where the criminal charges should be brought. This fatal shooting brings the use, once again, of no-knock warrants into scrutiny. Some of you are saying, wait a minute, Doc. I thought we dealt with this the last time we had an incident in Minnesota. Well, you did, in a way. In May of 2020, the Minneapolis Police Department officers were involved.
There we go, bam, right there, George Floyd.
Before later being
and Breonna Taylor, don't forget that.
The national coverage over the killings of Floyd and Breonna Taylor, who was shot by police in Kentucky as they performed a no-knock warrant entry, led to sustained protests and calls for police reform. That summer, the Minneapolis police announced a new policy on no-knock warrants. This was inclusive of the city government, aimed at limiting the likelihood of bad outcomes. Officials said the officers would be required to announce their presence and purpose before entering, except in hostage situations. Jeff Storms, let's go to Jeff, one of the Locke family attorneys, said to CNN, and I quote, "To the best of my knowledge, he," meaning Mr. Locke, "was not named in any of the search warrants. He was not even a
Mr. Locke was just sleeping.
The city of Minneapolis told the public that it was limiting the use of no-knock warrants to limit the likelihood of bad outcomes."
There you go.
Less than 2 years later, Amir Locke and his family needlessly suffered the worst possible outcome. Our city has to do better.
Yeah.
It gets deeper. There's more.
Here we go.
During a press conference late Thursday, interim police chief Amelia Huffman said, and I quote, "At this point, it's unclear for how he, Locke, Mr. Locke, is connected to St. Paul's investigation. These events unfold in seconds, but the trauma is long-lasting. A young man lost his life, and his friends and family are in mourning." The initial release from authorities said, and I quote,
"The trauma is
officers encountered a male who was
too.
armed with a handgun pointed in the direction of officers. Officer Mark Hanneman, as identified by the city of Minneapolis, then shot at and hit Locke. The police department says aid was immediately provided as the officers carried him down to the lobby to meet the paramedics. People deserve due process. According to every report we have, Mr. Locke was not listed on the warrant.
He wasn't.
He was not their target. But even if he was, this is the reality of the conversation. They are still in violation of departmental policy. That policy has now been active for 2 years. They are in violation of that. And number two, due process has been eliminated, and due process is a constitutional right. Okay, let's put up a picture of the interim police chief.
Oh, it's a lady.
Because they're now providing a picture of the cop who actually did the killing. All right? So when they play hide the pickle, we got a game for them. Mr. Locke was taken to the Hennepin County Medical Center where he died. Hanneman has been placed on administrative leave, the police officer. As is policy pending an ongoing investigation, a spokesperson for the city said. CNN has attempted to reach Officer Hanneman and has reached out to the Minneapolis Police Federation for comment, but none has come, and none will come, by the way. They're not going to comment on this. Benjamin Crump said, Benjamin Crump is a good friend of mine. He said, and I quote, Locke, who has several family members in law enforcement and no past criminal history, legally possessed a firearm at the time of his death. Like the case of Breonna Taylor, the tragic killing of Amir Locke shows a pattern of no-knock warrants having deadly consequences for Black Americans. Now, let me bring some common sense to this conversation about no-knock warrants. The policy in Minneapolis makes sense. The written policy makes sense. But remember, culture will eat policy alive any day. The policy says stop no-knock warrants except if there's a hostage, active hostage
but this
situation.
Was not
okay.
a hostage situation.
You may have to sneak up on somebody. We get that. You can't announce yourself in a hostage situation. But let's be very clear here, okay? This is criminal. This is criminal.
This is a criminal
Just
act.
because a gun and a badge is involved does not make it legal, does not make it right, does not make it righteous. And here's the other side of the coin. Why aren't members of law enforcement fighting for these common sense policies? Because the truth is, if you startle somebody, wanted or not wanted, on the warrant or not on the warrant, if you kick in their door, they are going to shoot first and ask questions later, and damn it, I know I would. If somebody came in my home, kicked in my door, my family is here, they're going to get into business. I don't know who you are. I don't know why you kicked in my door. It doesn't make sense that this is an argument, that this is a debate. You don't give people the opportunity to even consider what in the hell is happening in their homes. This was a lawful gun owner. You think the National Rifle Association, think they're going to come out and defend this brother? Of course not. He doesn't fit the narrative. Maria, what are your thoughts on this?
You know, it's just, again, we're kind of talking about the sheriff, law enforcement, their sense that they're above the law.
Yeah.
And you think
That's
about,
the problem with
as
these
you're
mentality
saying,
cops.
and as you were
They think
saying,
they're above the law.
Rashad, I
They
was
think they're
like,
fucking
right now I'm in my home,
jury,
it's a tiny little home where I happen to be in the country right now, outside of New York City. But either in New York City where I live in Harlem, or I'm here in Connecticut in my small home. You're right, if the door comes open, we are not going to wait to hear what that person who just busted into our house is saying. My husband is certainly not going to wait. So you have to think about logic, which is right. You're right. In a hostage situation, okay, you're not going to announce yourself. But other than that, why is it that due process is being denied so easily. And I remind you, just to make a connection that I think is always super important, this young man, Mr. Locke, was denied all of his due process and shot without even a chance. If you are not born in this country, you are denied due process every time you engage with law enforcement, because you are taken into immigration and there is no due process there. So we have to make these connections. What happened to this young man, Mr. Locke, in his bedroom in Minnesota with a registered gun, being denied and ultimately murdered, but denied his due process of anything, is connected to what's happening everywhere in our country, where immigrants, many of them black, are also being denied due process simply because they were not born in this country.
I'm so glad you made the connection, because it permeates from a similar culture that says we deserve to be here, you do not. And that ideology is what we are attempting to deconstruct and eliminate from our societal construct.
Yeah. And what's today? Let's see. Today's the 8th. It's Tuesday. Hey, you know what that means. It's Happy Fuck the Cops Day. 2-time. And before we get out of here, I'm going to say that. Fuck the police! Blue Lives Murder! Like Eric Brand has always said. With that said, I'm out here. Mic drop. Peace out.